Okay, let's begin. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Young-Ki Kim. I'm professor of physics at the University of Chicago and president of the Korean American Scientists and Engineers Association, KSEA. I'm truly excited and thrilled that with us this evening, we have Jun Ha, professor of mathematics at Princeton University and the 2022 Fields Medalist. I'm sure that all of you know the Fields Medal is the highest honor in mathematics. So please join me in congratulating and welcoming Professor Ha with a big round of applause. But of course, Professor, you don't hear it because of all the other people are muted. So imagine that there's a big round of applause. So we are very much look forward to listening to your trajectory and achievement through this conversation. But before we start that, I would like to make a very brief introduction of Professor Ha. He was born in California, grew up in South Korea. He majored in physics, astronomy, and mathematics in college and got a master's degree in mathematics, all at Seoul National University. He came back to US in 2009, began his PhD studies at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and completed his doctorate at the University of Michigan in 2014. Between 2014 and 2020, he held research fellowships and visiting professorships at Clay Mathematics Institute, Institute for Advanced Study, and Princeton University, and was a professor at Stanford University between 2020 and 21. He moved to Princeton University as a professor in 2021. Prior to the 2022 Fields Medal, Professor Ha received numerous honors and awards, including the 2019 New Horizons Prize for Early Career Achievement in Mathematics, the Blavatnik Award for Young Scientists in 2017, and the Samsung Hoan Prize in Science, Physics and Mathematics section in 2021. Like many of you, I read a number of articles about him. I'd like to share a few sentences from these articles describing him. Quote, he dropped out high school to become a poet. He was not interested in mathematics until his 6th year in college. Studying in graduate school, he has solved several major math problems. His profound insights connecting combinatorics and geometry have led to the highest honor in math. Ha himself draws the parallels between the artist and the mathematician. So now, concerning our conversation, I would like to first thank almost 60 people who have submitted questions. Special thanks have to go to our high school students and undergraduate graduate students who submitted the questions. And I'll go over some of them, not all, unfortunately. And toward the end, I hope I will have some time to get questions from you. I will hope that you can use the Zoom chat box that be writing your questions, and I'll go through and ask questions at the end. So Professor Ha, first question, set of questions concerned your research about the work that you got the Fields Medal for. How would you describe it to this general audience, including junior high school and high school students?
Well, there are largely two different types of mathematics that you encounter on all levels. One is the study of discrete objects, usually things that you can count, 1, 2, 3, and finite sets and relations between finite sets, maybe a network of some kind, so graph, connectivity, that kind of thing. And the other thing is what you would call a continuous mathematics, the study of quantities that vary smoothly or continuously, say, and things that change as time flows, maybe. And most of mathematical disciplines fall into either one of these types of mathematics. And our intuition for them have evolved rather separately throughout the long history of mathematics. And the kind of math that I and my collaborators, friends do these days is to try to build bridges between these two different realms of mathematics, the discrete mathematics and continuous mathematics. So on some level, it is completely believable that the fact that we have these two different types of mathematics is an accident, like a biological accident. Our species have evolved in such and such environment, and our sense organs have evolved in such a way that we perceive things on certain levels that's clearly like a continuous or smooth, and there's some other level that makes it useful for us to have this discrete type of mathematics. But if we have evolved in a completely different scale or completely different environment, we would certainly have different type of mathematics. But some of the questions that you can ask in mathematics, it's clear that they are independent of the circumstances that we have evolved in as a species. So it's definitely very, very useful thing to have have the intuition that allows you to go back and forth between these two different modes of mathematical reasoning. And of course, we have our limitations, but we can do something about this artificial division of mathematical insights. And well, that's what I and people like myself try to do, like build bridges, connecting discrete and continuous mathematical insights.
Great. Well, so but then maybe you can tell us how you choose your math problems and how you tackle them.
Well, I have a very practical criterion for that. I try to work on the problems that I can make progress on. That's the most important thing. And this is not an obvious criterion. Some other mathematicians operate in a completely different way. And many of us, as you can imagine, are idealists. And just some of us are just drawn to certain problems that they feel are the most important or profound or beautiful. But well, I am a practicalist, and I personally hate difficult problems. So I try to find a problem that is easy to me personally. Yeah.
But yeah, also, you kind of mentioned a little bit, but maybe I'll just want to say a few words based on what I learned about you. You said that, you take a daily long walk around Princeton University, and you are very good at finding small livings while you are making your way through the woods. So I wonder, if nature has been inspiring you finding your own problems to solve.
Well, I don't know. I'm just good at finding stuffs. I don't know. Nature is inspiring my mathematical ideas in any direct way, but I would, empirically speaking, I would say it's a very helpful habit to expose yourself to nature. Yeah, I mean, oftentimes in mathematics, and I suppose the same for other fields that needs to solve problems, but especially in mathematics, you get stuck very, very often. And somehow you have to have that algorithm to unstuck yourself.
Mhm.
One thing about being stuck is that if you're stuck and if you are in the same environment that made you stuck, then you remain stuck. That's typically what happens. So it's important to make yourself open up.
So how do you do that?
Just go outside, walk in the woods, and
Uh-huh.
go in the wide open area and just
Mhm.
expose yourself to a lot of different things. So a lot of space. You need a lot of space, just
Right.
mentally and also like
Mm.
physically.
I really resonate with what you just said. I think it happens to many of us when you get stuck. It's not only mathematical problems, but other scientific problems or any problems in your life. You just either take a walk or stay away from what you're really in your environment that you have been focusing for many hours. Get away and approach your problem from very different angles. I think that probably certainly help.
Yeah, I very much agree.
Great. Now, of course, many people are interested in your background as because you want to become a poet. I wonder whether your poetic detour has been any importance to your mathematical career.
And that was a very long time ago. I can barely remember what
Uh-huh.
myself was like back then. And in general, like I think you should never believe the answers that you get when you ask questions of that kind to someone. Like we all live once and exactly once, and we never treaded that path that we didn't go through. So I have like absolutely no understanding of what I would have been like if I was not interested in poetry. Would have my mathematics affected in any way? I mean, people always like develop some version of story that they tell themselves, and oftentimes when asked, tell other people as well. But these are just stories, and honestly, I have just no idea whether it has anything to do with the kind of mathematics that I do now. But
Yeah, humans are very complex.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you
yeah,
don't
it's
know what.
complicated. It's very
Right, right.
complicated.
It's
Yeah,
hard to
yeah.
understand ourselves. I totally agree with you. So another question actually is something that I was very interested in asking. Some say that the mathematicians are looking for beauty, like what artists do. And you yourself said during one of the interviews that you are grabbing something that is already there rather than creating something in your mind. So I feel the mathematicians search for both beauty and truth. Beauty is the truth, beauty. That's all we know on earth and all you need to know by John Keats. So what do you think of any connection between beauty and truth in your work?
So when I was doing that interview, probably really wanted to impress this other person. So by saying something like that sound profound and maybe like that. But I mean, in truth, like I'm a completely like a shallow type of guy, and to say it in a slightly better way, I'm a very practical person, and if you want to make a good career, say in one of the pure disciplines, say mathematics, truth and beauty, those are like absolutely necessary things. It's not, it doesn't have anything to do with like a romantic view of your something. Like a truth, that's certainly a necessary thing. If you publish a paper that's just not true, then you're out of the game.
Right.
I mean, you can be forgiven maybe twice or three times, but if you consistently do that, that's just no brainer. And the beauty, that's also absolutely necessary. It has nothing to do with your romantic view or world view. I mean, if what you do is not beautiful, it will not excite people, especially your colleagues, and most importantly, yourself.
Mhm.
And if you do not find what you're looking at or what you're working on beautiful, then you will get bored, and that's fatal. Like that's the one thing that you want to keep in yourself as a researcher, is that pure excitement and joy when you are doing your thing. And so in that sense, this truth and beauty both are absolutely necessary thing to just make a living, to make a good job out of.
That's right. Of course, the beauty can be very different for different fields and different people, but if you think it's a beauty, that's all matters to me.
Yeah.
Okay, now moving to slightly different set of questions. This is about students and their lives. So a number of people were surprised to learn that you had no desire to be a mathematician when you were younger, and asked how and why you chose math, and what makes math special to you.
I mean, isn't that a very, very natural thing? 99.999% of people have absolutely no desire to be a mathematician, because there are so many cool things in the world besides mathematics. I mean, mathematics, that's good, but it's not that exciting in any obvious way, especially when you're young. And there are so many fun things in the world, especially when you're young. So yeah.
How did you discover what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I don't know. I like mathematics, but that it's just that I find so many different things very interesting when I was young. And somehow my path, at least the version of story that I tell myself, how I got to be a mathematician, is like almost completely accident. So I was really into writing, like physics, astronomy, like stars very far away, like the structure of the universe and time. And these are like obviously fascinating things, and I really wanted to pursue them. And I did. That was the major I chose when I entered university. But then I had suffered from an episode of depression, and I just completely flunked out of all the courses that I was taking in my junior year. And then, well, I had to take a rest for some reason. I don't know why that happened. I'm just like that. But when I returned to school, while I still loved the subjects that I was studying before, but I just, as a fresh start, I wanted to do something else. It That just felt like a natural thing to do at the moment, as a sign of new beginning, maybe. And then the mathematics was just there. It was an adjacent field, not very far from the things that I were doing, but at the same time, it was a new thing for me. And so, and there are some very attractive courses that I could fit in my timetable. So I did so, and I liked it. So
Great. I think you touched a little bit, but there are a number of questions from our undergraduate, graduate students. Some students struggle. I think it's totally okay. Many of us did the same thing. Some struggling because they don't understand the meaning of studying college. There's some questions about that, and some experiencing moments of feeling lost. And you touched a little bit. Some have anxiety and difficulties in their research life or personal life. So I think you already shared a little bit of your experiences. Do you have any advice or maybe your own experience that how you overcome these difficulties as a student?
I don't know. I mean, I want to make a very general comment. So, which is that I'm not a very knowledgeable person, and I don't have any kind of a special wisdom that other people do not have. I did not have before, and I don't have it right now. I mean, young people tend to. I was that kind of person as well, but the young people especially have the tendency to believe that if somebody is like an Ivy League professor, maybe is decorated with medals and prizes, then maybe he has a special kind of wisdom inside him. And I can assure you that in most cases, there are exceptions, but in a lot of those cases, that is just not the case. And winning the Fields Medal didn't make me any like more wise, not even a single bit. So you shouldn't like take too much weight, put too much weight on what I say, but I can only say out of my experience. And one thing that you can be pretty sure is that everybody struggles, maybe in a different way. But if you feel that you're struggling, then that's completely normal.
Right. I think in some sense, it's struggling is healthy. If you don't struggle at all, I'll be more worried about people, students who don't struggle. I mean, it's probably I said it so too strongly, but in different level, and some people struggle more and others and different issues. But a bit of struggling or a lot of struggling, it's a good thing in some way. So
I agree, but I also I should acknowledge that some types of struggle can be very dark.
absolutely, yeah, that's right.
I don't want to, yeah.
Right. We shouldn't.
And sometimes there's just no easy solution. But yeah, oftentimes there is a way out, often unexpected way, unexpected to you somehow. You have to find yourself to like go slightly beyond yourself. Usually the struggle happens when you have a very solid boundary of yourself, like this is who I am or who I should be, and that usually does not help.
Well, thank you for the wisdom from your own experience.
Yeah.
Now, a little bit more touching on your research and specific tips, or again, you're just speaking about your experiences. Here are some questions. Were you always passionate about mathematics, or was there a point you thought you could be pursuing other fields? I guess this is after maybe your PhD time. And what aspects of your research fields interest and inspire you, and why?
Well, I guess I already answered the first question, which is that I wasn't always interested in mathematics. So I started rather late, but fortunately for me, like once I started in mathematics, everything like flowed very naturally, and I didn't have a second thought of pursuing other stuffs. Well, I didn't have time to waste. Yeah.
Right. I think this question is after you decide to be a mathematician, but its answer is that you're always excited about your work and continued. And similarly, I think these are especially students who are doing research. I think they are curious to know whether your strategy has been go deeper and deeper, no matter how long it will take, or do you put aside and bring it up later? You have to make time. So that's again the ways of doing your research.
I would say, first of all, I don't think I really have a strategy, at least consciously. I just hate being strategic, but sometimes I am like that. But in general, I don't know. I think just in general, like this intention and willpower, these sort of things are highly overrated because these are all coming from like a very tiny version of yourself. And so oftentimes you're much more capable than that. And to make the bigger version of yourself more active, you shouldn't confine yourself by goals and so on. And I think I'm closer to the second version of the second type that was in the description. Especially, I don't like the expressions like no matter what it takes, like go deeper and deeper, whatever, no matter what it takes. Yeah, I I just don't like that, and that's like an obsession. And it makes you very, very small, and it gives you a tunnel vision, and it's very, very easy to fail in that mode of operation because you are eliminating a lot of different possibilities for yourself. And in general, that gives you trouble, unless you're very, very lucky. Yeah.
Okay, the next questions about your own research area and related. And the questions are, for example, how do you balance between learning new stuff and working on your own research? Would an interdisciplinary background be helpful in your research? Do you have any tips on how to combine different fields of study to solve problems? So any of these questions you like to answer, that'd be great.
The first one, I'm pretty heavily leaning on the doing research side. Believe it or not, I'm pretty terrible at learning things. And for example, like from classes or stuff, or participating in a seminar, or somehow, I mean, it works great for some people. It's somehow I never managed to learn anything in that mode. I only learn new things when I'm trying to do stuff, and do in this context, I mean like research. So when I try to do something, and when I need something, and I try to think about it, and that's how I learn new things. But different things work for different people, so it's really a question of style and taste.
Okay, next questions are about work and life balance. How do you balance between your research and your mental and physical well-being? What is your stress reliever?
Well, I mean, the framing of the question make it sound like that you have to balance two things, right? Maybe in order to keep your mental and physical well-being, you have to maybe sacrifice a little bit of research and vice versa. But I think it's completely not like that. So in order to like excel in your research, you really have to take care of yourself. And the way to excel in research is to take a good care of yourself mentally and physically. So it's not like a this or that, like in order to, and if you are like a researcher, like a research mathematician, if that is who you are and that is what you are supposed to do, and your like a mental well-being is also heavily dependent on how well your research goes. So it goes in both ways. So it's not really about balancing. It's all part of one package that you have to take care of.
That's great. Yeah, that's great advice. Okay, now I'll just change a little bit topic. This is
Oh,
about
by the way, you should
what?
really ask one question at a time because I have a terrible, like a short time memory. So
Okay,
once I give answer to the first question, I have like a completely forgotten about the second and the third question. So
got it, got it. So I won't do that.
yeah.
Sorry about that. This is a question about education as a kid or teenager. We heard that when you are a kid and teenager, you hated the constraints and could not focus in a classroom setting. However, you preferred to do on your own work, to do on your own. Actually, this is a question about your parents, actually. We understand that your father teaching or taught statistics and mother Russian language and literature. And what did your parents do?
Um, I don't know. I was pretty much free ranged, I think, and I liked it. Yeah, they were like in general like a very good friends of mine,
Mhm.
and they would talk to me a lot, but they didn't have like any very rigid expectations for me.
Mhm.
And in some sense, they didn't care like too much about like my academic progress. I mean, once one year I was preparing for a college entrance exam, and then I was out, went to this one of these hub-ons, and then I went back in the evening, and I just noticed that all my stuffs, all my like books and textbooks and so on, they were gone. Like my mother just happened to decide that she's doing the interior remodeling of our apartment, and they just forgot to tell me about it, and she just sent all my textbooks to some warehouse without telling me. And this was like a 4 months before the exam, and then like what happened to my books, and then oh, I thought you didn't need them. Oh, but anyway, we sent them to warehouse, and we were going to do this interior work, and we are going to live in your grandma's house for 1 month from now on. And somehow this sort of like a lack of interest and sort of a things was very relieving, because it
Mhm.
gives you the impression that no, it's this exam kind of things. It's not a big deal. I mean, when you're very young, this looks like a huge thing. Like your entire life is dependent on it, and you get, and in a sense that's true, maybe, but just feeling that pressure as a young kid is not good. And if there's someone in your life that takes things more lightheartedly, then that's I think that was pretty relieving to me. Yeah. I don't think my parents behaved that way in like a strategically
Mhm.
to have this effect, but I
But
like
perhaps
this. Yeah.
maybe they believe in you in some way.
Maybe they did. Yeah, I know. But whether they had a good reason to believe, I'm not sure about that. Yeah.
Now that you are parent of two children, how do you educate your children?
So again, the same
Same.
kind of very general necessary remark. So I'm a like a complete beginner as far as parenting goes, and I have no clue on like how to be a good parent. But yeah, I would like to know the answer to that question. But yeah, again, I try to be a good person, especially when I'm hanging around with my kids.
Mhm.
I try to be their good friends. I like them and I try to show it. I think these are like a few general principles that cannot be not correct. So, but other than that, I have no specific ideas
Mhm.
how to be a good parent. It's generally clueless.
Being good friends is very, very important, I think. Um, about this is a question from undergraduate students. They would like to know your teaching philosophy and methodology for undergraduate students.
I'm also a beginning teacher, so I'm not like experienced like a professor. So I had this Clay Fellowship thing, which exempted me from teaching for many years, and this is like my second or third year as a professor with actual teaching duties. So I don't know, but I think it's useful for yourself and your students that you actually enjoy teaching, enjoy spending time with your students. That always has a positive effect. And I think as teachers, we have some control, not absolute control, but some control of that. So I try to prepare myself so that I can enjoy the time I spend with my students in the classroom.
For graduate students, is there anything that they should remember as a graduate student? Something important thing for them to remember?
I think if you're a grad student, I think it's just a good time to learn how to be independent as a thinker.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is often said as it's easier said than done, but it's perhaps more important than people think on the surface. So try to be independent from your advisor. So
Mm-hmm.
he could be your mentor, but probably it's better not to get like a step-by-step instructions from him or her,
Mm-hmm.
and try to find your way. Try to figure out how to operate your brain and figure out things. Yeah.
Right. So there will be, for some students, it's challenging from high school or college education, which is less independent thinker. And now you have to have some phase transition. But I think everybody, you can start with a small independent project and thinking, and it can grow. So I think that's, I agree with you. It's very important. Any books that you would like to recommend to our high school students or college students?
Well, I don't know. There are so many good books out there. I have nothing like a specifically related to mathematics or something, but I read this book by David White. He's a poet, Irish poet. He has so many books, but one thing that's a little bit unusual is his book titled "Consolations: The Underlying Meaning of Everyday Words." So he lists like a 50-something everyday words, like love or arrival or friendship or stuff like that. And then he tries to tell the true meaning of those mundane words. And it's written beautifully. And it's pretty clear that, of course, he's a very talented writer. But the thing that I like about his style of writing is that, first of all, it goes very deep very quickly. But at the same time, it's pretty clear, at least to my eyes, that he didn't revise his writing too much. So it almost feels as if you are doing some sort of a live interaction with him.
Mhm.
So, for example, unlike most poets' sentences, his expressions are highly repetitive. He has some of his like favorite expressions and then the favorite way of saying things, and he didn't try to conceal those. So maybe I mean in terms of like structural elegance, maybe this is a minus, but it really gives you the impression of spontaneity and the genuineness of these expressions.
Great. Now moving to a different topic. This is a connecting or relation between you and your field and your work and rather different fields. That is, can your work be connected and applied to other fields such as computer science and technology, or perhaps with the economics?
I don't want to add to this stereotype, pure mathematician, but in full honesty, like I don't know. Maybe I don't care. But there are some papers like using some of my works with my collaborators to do something in computer science, but like a theoretical computer science to be precise. But you can use some of the results to show that certain quantities can be computed like faster than what was expected by an obvious algorithm. So there are connections like this, and maybe in the distant future we will see more, but I don't know.
Yeah, you never know, especially, math or basic science, the immediate applications or sometimes application or the societal benefit takes decades or even a century. So you never know.
I mean, but this is like this is, I think, exactly the same kind of thing that I talked about before about the role of like a willpower and intention being overrated. But that was that discussion was completely on the individual level. But this is the same thing. I think basically the same thing on a much more global level, us as a species. This like I want to do this thing because I want to make something useful, or this is like a intention and willpower at the level of society or a species. And this is just in general limits yourself or ourselves in a very severe way on how we operate, how we think, or what we can think. And I first of all, we don't know what we want, and the kind of thing that we have very, at least some vague idea of like what we want or what we can do, or those are like much inferior than the kind of things that we cannot even consciously imagine right now, but also at the within reach, let's say within next 100 years. So I find it very tricky, of course, to sell this kind of point of view to like politicians or like administration people that actually make important decisions. But this is what I honestly think. Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you for your honest opinions. Just my last question, and then we can ask our audience to ask questions. Any current project or future project that you are working on? Can you share? We'd like to see insight of what you are doing these days or in the near future.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have one, and I wish I could do something surprising, not to other people, but to myself. So I really want to,
Mhm.
that's always been my wish. I want to do something that's surprising to myself.
Great, great. So let's move now to our audience. Let me see. Okay, let me quickly go through. Do you see all the questions?
I don't see any
Oh,
questions
I think
except
people just sent to me. No, okay, so you can you can ask your question. I have my colleague here. So what's your question? Go ahead.
Hi, I have one question about your relationship to language. Maybe my question is one scholarly one because I'm a literature major,
yes.
and also I have a personal question. So my kind of academic question is, what if I presuppose that your poetic involvement in your younger days might have affected the ways in which you have begun to engage with mathematical or other languages in your professional career, then how would you comment on that? I think it may be different from like the just poetry versus mathematics. I feel that the way that you use language with precision and nuance seems to be very special, and I wonder how your relationship to language in general, or even like Korean language, might have influenced the ways in which you grasp this unknowable kind of world. And my personal question is that I know that one of the poets that you were interested in when you're young, remote from now, but it was Ki Hyung-do, and I would like to know what about him or what about his poetry let you sustain your interest when you're interested in his poetry?
Well, those were two questions that I will try to remember very hard, but let me start by answering the first one. So again, like I don't know whether my interest in poetry or anything has some effect on my mathematics, but it is true that I have been always a very language-oriented person. So there are many different types of mathematicians, and in a sense, every mathematician operates in a completely different way. But there are like a few rough species of us. Like some of us are very, very geometry in the sense that they visualize everything and they are very, very good at it. Even like high dimensional spaces and how things move inside that and so on. And some other of us are like a very good with numbers and computations. And I am certainly neither of those guys. I'm terrible with geometry. I'm terrible with numbers and computations and so on. But I am very sensitive to language. And I think it has been one of my strong points as a research mathematician. I think all the mathematics completely linguistically, like in language. This is not true to every mathematician. I think some people almost not use any language when forming their initial insight, at least. Eventually, they're going to write their papers in language, but at least when the ideas are forming. But I operate from beginning to the end completely in language, and it is a very useful thing because mathematics, above all, is a kind of communication. And of course, being able to communicate your ideas precisely to other people, that's important. But even before that, it's a kind of internal dialogue of you and yourself. You had some vague feeling about certain thing and you want to make it precise. And how do you do that? One way of doing that is to have a very long extended conversation with yourself. That's what I do. And our minds have this amazing ability that produces something out of nothing, right? Initially, you have no idea what's inside you, but as you continue your conversation with yourself, you come up with things that like your former, like a past self had like absolutely could have not dreamed of, right? Without any external data. And for this process, at least for me, the ability to handle languages in a very precise and fluent way, that's been important for me. And I think also my background, being raised as a Korean in a completely Korean language, and then now I'm living and working in an English setting. Having these two different types of languages has been enormously useful to me, because it's almost like having a dual operating system. You can get stuck in a Korean mode, and then you switch to English. So you start thinking in English, and then that's a completely different person, and you have a very fresh start on the problem that you have been stuck before. And if this guy gets stuck and you can switch to your Korean thing, and then you can start thinking in Korean mode, and that guy is a completely new person that has nothing to do with the former person that got stuck. So you have again a fresh start, and you can go back and forth and having this dual operating system. Like I suppose this is the same for many of you who are in the Zoom room right now. So I think this is a good thing.
Okay, I have many questions just coming to me, and I'm trying to cut and paste it, giving to everyone, and I don't know how many I captured. Professor,
Completely forgot about the second question, which now I recall. Right, there were two questions.
Well, shall we move to, because there are so many questions.
Right. Yeah. So maybe one question at a time.
Yeah. Professor He, I put. Could you go to chat box and see? There are a bunch of questions that I just cut and paste came to me, so I shared with you. And if you could look at them and answer, a few of those questions.
Oh, I choose?
Yeah. You have a freedom to choose. So you see a number of questions coming in the chat box. Is that correct?
Yes, I can see them now.
Okay. Yeah. If you could,
There's one written in Korean that asks about the depression, how to deal with the depression.
Okay, you can answer that question if you like.
Yeah, I mean, I can at least say that I have the same kind of problem. That's my biggest thing to handle, at least in my life. I mean, my life has been generally good. I didn't have like a serious difficulties in health or like economic issues or that sort of thing. And in that sense, I have been extremely lucky and fortunate to be surrounded by good people within a good environment. But the one thing that I had to take care of was this depression thing. And I don't know a good solution to that, but just I think it's a surprisingly common thing in academia and just society in general. I think it's generally helpful just to keep that in mind, as you are perhaps not special, but in a good way. It's a very common problem. And then yeah, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say too much, but good luck.
Okay, there are other questions in the chat box. One simple question is actually they asked you to repeat the book you mentioned earlier.
Oh, the title is Consolations by David White.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at choosing stuffs.
Do you want me to pick?
Yeah, maybe you should
Okay,
pick.
maybe one math question. Do you think that infinity could physically exist in our world?
Oh, that's not a math question. That's a physics question.
Etc. Philosophy question.
Yeah. And there's a physicist in the room, so I will refrain from speaking. Yeah.
Okay, so what should I choose? What type of music do you listen to?
Oh, I like a lot of different types of music. I like classical music, jazz music. I had a blues period where I listened to all sorts of blues. About 20 years ago, I was really into Eric Clapton. And I had my jazz period. Classically, I'm pretty much into Bach. I really admire his work.
And then there was a question that for students after college and graduate school to continue STEM, their careers in STEM, do you think there should be societal or institutional support or any specific support needed for them to remain?
Well, I mean, if you really want to work in the STEM field and that's your thing, and then of course it would be a very good thing to have a systematic support, maybe at the institutional level or even like in a bigger level that helps you do that. But at the same time, like yeah, I don't know what's good for society. I don't have a insight on large things, but at the individual level, if a friend was asking me, then I would say that, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that was not the point of the question, but maybe it's not a very good thing that you frame yourself to be like, I need to be in the STEM field. Like, there are so many different things one can do out in the world, and I've seen like pure math PhDs, maybe pure theoretical physics PhDs, like going into industries and then doing wonderful stuff, having a happy and meaningful life. And somehow, some of us, when we are young, consider those possibilities as sort of insulting, right? I think that's very specific to academia. Maybe some sort of artist, maybe, but I think that's not very healthy. So I think being open-minded is generally a good thing.
Good. I think since we have 2 minutes left, sorry everyone that we cannot go through all the questions, but there are a lot of questions about already. I think the professor had touched a little bit here and there. So it was a fascinating conversation and very inspiring. So I'd like to thank you again. I know that everyone won't be able to give a big round of applause. I think we can. Let me see. Joseph, could you make everybody?
Oh, please don't. I just don't like being
Okay, okay.
applauded.
But you can just imagine that you'll get a big round of applause. And thank you again. And again, as I said, that it will be very, very helpful, valuable to all of us this evening. And thank you, everyone, for joining us, and have a wonderful evening. I look forward to seeing all of you again at future KSEA events.
Thank you, Youngie.
Yeah, thanks for everyone for coming and spending an hour with me. I don't think I have delivered a great wisdom to you guys, but at least you will find value in seeing that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
very, very valuable. I think you were
Okay.
very honest, the opinions and what you're thinking. I think it's just a seeing that is such a valuable evening for us.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, and thanks for your time. And maybe
Thank you.
our paths will
Bye-bye.
cross at some point. Bye. everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.